There's an entire invisible world teeming with life all around us and even inside of us. So today, let's dive into a really fundamental question. How do you even begin to identify a life form you can't see?
No, really. Just let that sink in for a second. In one single drop of water, there could be millions of different organisms. So how in the world does a scientist pinpoint the one that matters? How do you tell the difference between a totally harmless microbe and a really deadly one?
Well, it really boils down to two main philosophies. You can identify a bacterium by what it does, watching its behavior, how it looks, the chemical trails it leaves behind. Or you can identify it by who it is, by reading its unique genetic ID. It's kind of like the difference between identifying a person by how they act versus just checking their driver's license.
Okay, so let's start with the classic approach. And honestly, you should think of this as old-school detective work, gathering clues, dusting for prints, all happening in the lab. This detective work follows a pretty classic process. First, you've got to isolate your suspect from the scene of the crime, whether that's a water sample or a patient. Then you need more to work with, right? So you grow it on a petri dish until you have a whole colony. And finally, you put it through a series of tests, a kind of chemical interrogation to build a full profile. Right away, scientists start to narrow down the suspects using some really clever tools. Some petri dishes are selective, acting like a bouncer at a club. Only certain types of bacteria are allowed to grow. But others are even cooler. They're differential, meaning they have dyes that make different bacteria turn different colors based on what they're doing chemically. It's like seeing their fingerprints appear right before your eyes. The investigation doesn't stop there, though. Detectives will gather even more clues. They'll see what kinds of sugars the bacteria likes to eat, what special enzymes it produces, and they'll even analyze the unique fats in its cell wall. Once they have this whole rap sheet, they check it against the ultimate master file, Bergey's manual, which is basically the FBI's most wanted list for the entire bacterial world.
But, this classic detective work has its blind spots. A huge revolution was coming, one that would let scientists skip all the behavioral clues and go straight for the suspect's fundamental ID, their DNA.
This whole new approach is built on a brilliant concept called the molecular clock. Just imagine that. Over time, DNA collects tiny, random typos at a pretty regular rate. So if you compare the DNA of two creatures and find, say, 5 typos between them, you can work backwards and figure out when they split off from a common ancestor. It's a way of reading evolutionary history.
But you can't just use any old gene for this. To be a reliable clock, it has to check a few really important boxes. First, every living thing has to have it. Second, it has to do the same job everywhere, so you're always comparing apples to apples. And finally, it needs parts that change really slowly over eons, but also parts that change a little faster so you can tell close cousins apart.
So what's the magic molecule? What's the one that fits the bill almost perfectly? It's a gene called 16S ribosomal RNA. I know, it's a mouthful, but here's why it's so great. It's a key part of the ribosome, which is the protein-building factory in every single cell. Since all life needs to build proteins, we all have this gene. It's the perfect universal yardstick.
So basically, what this all means is that the 16S gene is like a universal barcode for life. You can just scan this one bit of code from almost any bacterium, and bam! You not only know what it is, you know its place in the entire family tree of life. So now we've got these two totally different ways of doing things, the classic detective work and the modern genetic scanning. And this really creates a tale of two very different kinds of labs, each picking the right tool for their mission. Think about it. If you're in a hospital, you need to know right now if a patient has a staph infection. Speed and cost are everything, so those classic biochemical tests are often the way to go. But if you're a research lab exploring a deep-sea vent trying to find a brand new species, you need the absolute precision of genetic sequencing. It's all about the right tool for the job.
And here is a perfect example of why the old way isn't always enough. For years, a major cause of food poisoning, this bug called Campylobacter was completely flying under the radar. Why? Because we just couldn't get it to grow in a petri dish. It was there, making people sick all along, but our methods were totally blind to it.
Okay, but the plot thickens. The limits of the classic method can get even weirder. Take a look at this family of bacteria, Bacillus. Based on what they do, they seem like totally different creatures. One is harmless, one gives you an upset stomach, one is an insect killer, and another one, well, it causes deadly anthrax. But here's the absolute mind-bender. When we scan their genetic barcode, their 16S gene, it suggests they might all be the same species. So what gives? How can one be so deadly?
Well, it turns out the dangerous ones carry extra DNA on these little swappable rings called plasmids. It's like they're all the same model of car, but one has a bunch of deadly aftermarket parts installed. A secret the old detective methods could never ever reveal. So once you have that genetic barcode, what do you do with it? Well, you don't just identify one bug, you start to see how all of them are connected. You get to build the universal family tree of life. And this is where some serious computing power comes into play. The computer takes the new barcode and lines it up against a massive database of all the known sequences. To make sure it's a fair fight, it trims them all to the same length. Then, a smart algorithm crunches the numbers and builds the most likely family tree, showing us that microbe's evolutionary story. And there's not just one way to build that tree. You can think of it as two different strategies. One way is to just look at the raw genetic distance, who's the closest neighbor. Another way is more like Occam's razor. It tries to find the simplest possible story, the one that requires the fewest evolutionary changes to explain how everyone's related. So, after all this, which one is better? The old-school detective or the high-tech geneticist? Well, as it so often is in science, the real answer is, why choose? The future is about using both.
Today, the absolute gold standard is called the polyphasic approach. It's a fancy term that just means use everything you've got. You take the genetic ID card and you combine it with all that great detective work, seeing how it grows, what it eats, to get the most complete, high-definition picture of an organism possible. And here's why all of this matters so much. That number you see, over 99%, scientists estimate that's the percentage of all bacterial species on Earth that we have not even discovered yet. We have barely scratched the surface of this invisible world.